Fireside's Welcome to IRMAn's Fireside Chat. My name is Jatin, also known as Ganapati Karyappa. I am from PRM 23. I am very happy to be here to moderate a conversation that is quite personal and also very timely. And that topic that we're going to talk about today is how do we put guardrails around AI so that it truly works for people, not just for profit or for hype. So that's the topic for today. And our audience today, I would expect, spans IRMA alumni working both in the not-for-profit sector as well as small and medium businesses, and perhaps a few of us who work in corporates as well. So what we will do in today's talk is we'll keep circling back to what AI and AI governance means in your specific context, and it's not just going to be simply focused only on corporates or on SMEs or on not-for-profits. So moving on, our guest this evening is Bhavna Rawlley, also from PRM 23. She is based in Singapore and she is a senior data and AI strategy and years of experience in data analytics and AI across insurance, financial services sector. Bhavna currently works at the intersection of technology, regulation, ethics, and has quite a bit of experience partnering with policymakers and with regulators to turn emerging AI guidelines into practical governance for real-world organizations. On a more personal note, Bhavna is also my partner in life. So I've had a bit of a front row sort of view to see her journey from rural management to somebody who spends her days trying to make AI systems a little more human-centered and a little less scary. So I'm going to try and keep this as participative as possible. So I would really welcome any comments. Please feel free to put them in the chat. And drop your questions as we go along, and I'll try and pick up as much of them as I can. Yeah. So perhaps let's try and warm up the room a little bit, but and put it in the chat anytime you want. But if you had to use one word right now, what is the word that comes to your mind when we say or hear AI today? So is it fear? Is it exciting? Is it overhyped, threatening? Just type your word in the chat and let's see. So in typical IRMAn style, I'm asking for a little bit of CP. So if you can give a little bit of CP in the chat, feel free to share your thoughts. One word, what comes to your mind when you think about AI or talk about AI? Let's just take a pause to look to see if anyone's adding anything. Optimistic, excitement, and scary at the same time. Okay, sounds good. Perhaps we'll touch all of this as we go through the session today. So, okay, so maybe let me start. Bhavna, so coming over to you, let's start at the beginning. Okay, so you spend your days working on AI governance, but most of us feel that that phrase is a little bit abstract. So if you had to explain AI governance to an IRMA batchmate, perhaps running an FPO, an NGO, or working in agri-banking, how would you describe it in 1 minute?
Thanks, Jatin. And thank you so much, the Alumni Association, for having me over. This topic is really close to my heart, and I'm really happy to be talking about this. So first, to introduce AI governance to my fellow alumni here. Actually, if you think about governance, it's a concept that is very much rooted in our IRMAn ethos, right? We all know about governance. We get taught about governance in our 2 years, and that's what we practice every day. People working in agri-banking, for example, you try to understand people who are eligible for your different loans. You look at the right documentation around it, what flexibility the field officers need to have, what happens when someone fails. And there is governance built into your entire process because you're looking at scarce money reaching the right people, and the whole process being fair and transparent. So AI governance is not anything different. And that's what you do with your systems. Even when you start using AI, the first question is this an acceptable use of AI? Am I using it the right way? What are the right guardrails? What are the right boundaries that I need to think about? Who is the system meant for? Is it going to harm somebody? How do I kind of build the right audit and the right kind of traceability behind it? And that's exactly what governance is. So, and that's about making sure that AI amplifies your mission and doesn't deter you from it. It doesn't undermine you. And especially when it comes to some of the classes of society which are constantly undermined and so on. So, yeah, I mean, in IRMAN terms, it is exactly what we've been trained to do. Back to you. Jatin, you're on mute. Sorry.
Thanks. Sorry. So people often hear governance and think bureaucracy or red tape. So clearly, it's a little bit wider than that. So moving on, in your experience, what is the biggest misconception that leaders have about AI governance? You worked with global standards and regulators on this topic. So what are your thoughts on this?
The biggest misconception is that people think that governance is a break to innovation. And I would strongly argue against that. I would say that governance done the right way, and governance, when it becomes a part of how you think about, how you build an AI system and is built into the design of it, is actually the right enabler for it. If you look at AI anywhere today, in organizations and so on, most of the AI is either at a pilot stage and it doesn't scale. The reason, because most leaders don't still trust this AI. And the reason they don't trust AI, because we've not built enough guardrails into our system yet. And that's why AI is not really, showing the benefits that it is supposed to do. So think about this, that AI is almost like a road that is built well. You have guardrails on the side, so that it enables you go at the right speed with the right signages and everything, and reach your destination safely and on time. And that's exactly what it does. Instead of some leaders who pretty much say that let's just launch something very quickly and see the results when they come, and without guardrails, you have a small failure which can lead to an unfair decision. It can lead to some kind of a regulatory complaint. It can lead to a social media disaster. And one time when AI fails, it just leaves this whole impression of that AI itself is unsafe to use. So that's where you really need to think about using AI the right way from the beginning.
Okay. Okay, I got it. So basically, in simple terms, what you're saying is that AI governance is about agreeing a certain set of guardrails so that systems are understandable, fair, accountable, and not just powerful. Okay, got it. Okay, let's sort of make a move into your journey into AI governance, and let's try and understand that better. So you didn't start your career saying that I want to be an AI governance leader 20 years ago. That it didn't happen like that. So
Yeah.
can you take us back to your early years in data and analytics? What was the turning point when you realized that someone has to own the guardrails here, and that someone might be you?
Yeah. I think that turning point actually started long before AI governance was even a job title. So, I mean, again, as an IRMAN, we're all trained to ask uncomfortable questions around power, equity, who benefits, and so on. So, even when I started my journey in AI, which was back in 2004, fresh out of IRMA, joined GE, and started. It was called analytics then, and slowly data scientists became like the sexiest job by Harvard Business Review. There was machine learning, later AI, now Gen AI, agentic AI imploding anywhere. There was always this nagging feeling at the back of my mind, which is kind of questioning that if this technology is so powerful, if this technology is really going to go the way it is, what will happen when this goes unchecked? Will it implode the entire system? Will it change everything that, the way we see it today? And that's where, while it was at the back of my head, and I got this opportunity to work with the Monetary Authority of Singapore, which is a local Singapore regulator, who was one of the first regulators, far ahead of their times, they started asking these questions. They started thinking about what they call FEAT principles: fairness, ethics, accountability, and transparency. And that's where they invited a few of us to join their consortium and become part of that initial group. None of us in the group knew what AI regulation meant. We were all learning. I still remember there was a small group of people from DBS and Standard Chartered and Citibank, and me from coming from a consulting world. And we were all sitting together and we were trying to understand what fairness really meant. What do you think is to talk about when the system is biased? How do you even identify it? What does transparency really mean? Is it being transparent to the end customers, or is internal transparency more important? Do you really need transparency when you're talking about fraud models? Because you don't want to be transparent on how you detect fraud, otherwise the fraudsters can use it. So there were so many questions that we didn't know answers to. And then Gen AI happened. And I still remember there was this immediately 2 months after Gen AI was launched, I had this conversation with the regulator where I'm trying to explain to them what Gen AI meant and what the harm of Gen AI could mean to us. And even I had no idea. 2 months into the line, we all saw these big words of hallucination and things like that, but nobody knew what it meant. So I think it was this learning that I had working with some of the most powerful people, or not powerful, it's more the smart people who ask the right questions. Like I said, none of us knew the answer. It's all about asking the right questions, is where I started getting into this whole field. And it's still a field that is so unexplored, and there's so much, but it's just such an exciting area to be in.
Okay. No, that's good. Perhaps there's a little bit which you could sort of relate to instinct over here. So maybe picking up a cue from that, um, could you tell me about, say, maybe a boardroom or a project moment, yeah, when the metrics looked really great, but your instinct said something is not right here. So is there something that you can, perhaps pull an example and, share? Briefly, I'm just keeping a little bit of a watch on time as well. So,
Mhm. So one example that always stays with me was there was this model that the team had built about finding the most eligible customers for some of our products. And on paper, the model looked amazing. It was completely green. It was hitting all the right metrics. It made a lot of business sense. And if we had just stopped up at the overall performance of the model, the board would have said, "Go ahead, go build this. This is the next best thing that will help us bring in the right customers." But then we asked a question. We said, "Can you show us a segment-wise performance for this?" And that's when we started dissecting it into different segments. And what we saw, that the older customers who were richer, had a lot of money, so were potentially the good customers for us, we were pushing them certain products which is not in their best interest. And that's where we realized that there's something wrong. The literally the mood in the room changed. The model was doing exactly what it was trained to, which is find the people who are more likely to buy and are so-called the people with the right kind of income and so on. But we were not talking about suitability. We were not talking about is this product something that is actually meant for them? There was nothing around the code of conduct and the policy around it that we were talking about. It was one of these moments that we had to step back and say, we should not scale it. Let's go back, let's retrain the model, ask the right question, and then build the right guardrail so that we can then go with what really the model should be doing.
no, that I think makes a lot of sense. A little bit of a segue now. You are presently leading data and AI strategy and governance at a major insurer. Yeah. So perhaps for those outside of that industry, could you tell us a little bit about what your typical Monday morning would look like in this role? What sort of decisions and dilemmas that uh, could maybe be landing on your desk? Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. So my Monday morning is less glamorous than what people think about and typical AI role sounds like. So usually it involves three things. One is, we start looking at the new systems that are being built and asking questions like, what problem are you solving? What data are you using? what could go wrong, and who's accountable for this. So one of the key things that people often forget is that every AI system needs to start with an accountable owner. Accountability is very key to whatever you build, because at the end of the day, the regulators and all really want to know that if a system fails, who can stand up and explain why it failed. And that's where the whole thing begins. The second thing that I look at is, at the existing systems, try to understand what is, are the systems still performing and doing what they're supposed to do. We might have put into production, the systems are ongoing, but that doesn't mean they can be forgotten. So you need to monitor the reports, you need to monitor incidents, because especially for Gen AI systems, more than 60% of incidents happen after you deploy. You cannot train a model before that, because the system starts interacting with the environment. People start using it in different ways, things, the ways that you can't even predict. To look at systems that are already live becomes really important. And then third is, there are new regulations coming in, new models coming in. Anthropic releases a model, every month, if not earlier. There are Chinese models coming in. You start looking at all these and trying to understand what is the impact of this. Is the safety guardrails enough to handle these kind of models? Mythos came in, and there was this whole thing of Mythos can hack any of your systems. What does that mean for my organization? So kind of doing that future looking kind of assessment for all these new models and so on. So that's pretty much what what my Monday morning kind of looks like.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, thanks. No, thanks for that. Let me try and sort of weave what this means for us as humans. And if you look at the audience today, most of us are spread across agribusiness, development, CSR, nonprofit, social enterprise. Yeah. And if you think back to IRMA and our fieldwork, co-ops, institutional building, is there anything from there that uh, prepared you for this, and maybe with your Irma cap on and looking through your three lenses of rural communities, nonprofits, and small businesses, SMEs. Um, can you contextualize this a little bit? What does it mean? What excites you most about AI, and specifically in the context that is relevant for the audiences? Of
Sure.
course, there's a lot of opportunities, but maybe if you
Yeah.
can share a little bit of your thoughts on that.
So, if I think about some of the immediate key opportunities or things that really excite me at this point, I mean, like you said, there are many of them, and maybe I'll just name three of them. One is for the rural community. It dramatically reduces information asymmetry. There are systems that are available in local languages now. Tools which can help farmers to understand different schemes that are available to them, the climate risks and what it means for their crops, what is the right kind of insurance that can be available for them, and so on. So it's a lot about the information asymmetry, and it democratizes the information to them. Second is nonprofits, and I'm sure people like Devam and all would relate to this. A lot of your time is taken in doing these repetitive work of making proposals, drafting some kind of reporting, and doing all these routine work and so on. So these sort of the back office kind of thing can be very quickly automated in an intelligent way using AI. So that will free up so much of your time to actually do things that matter more, to help our communities more, be out there in the field, and so on, while the repetitive tasks are taken over by AI. And third is for small businesses and SMEs. Again, AI can level the playing field. Things like demand forecasting, better customer service, and those things that are available to bigger firms because they have teams doing this and they had more resources and so on. Now they can do it very quickly using AI tools that are available. So it again leads to better democratization of all these capabilities for these smaller organizations, SMEs, and so on. So that's where I feel that AI can play a really important role across these areas.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks. And okay, that's a good connect. Uh, let's see if you can make this a little practical for a typical IRMA alum. Yeah, assuming uh, that we've all stayed the course. So imagine three of our batchmates, one running a rural nonprofit, one leading a social business or an SME, and one in a larger sort of corporate role, working with low-income customers. What are the first two or three AI governance questions that you'd want all three of them to ask before they roll out an AI-enabled solution?
Sure. I think I'll ask the same kind of question to all three. One is, what is the context that you're building this AI for? What is the intent of the system? Because it doesn't matter what underlying model, I mean, it does, but more than the underlying model that you're using, it is about what are you using it for? And what happens if it goes wrong? Who will be impacted the most? Name the people and not the KPI. So that's the first question, first thing to think about. Second, is the data that I'm using representative of the people that this or the community that this model is supposed to serve? Especially the quiet ones, the underrepresented ones, because your data typically does not represent population like the older population, women farmers, tenants, micro entrepreneurs, and so on. And that's where systematically my data tends to undermine these population and AI tends to undermine it. So how do I make my underlying data more representative? And third is this whole thing about human in the loop. Where does human have a say? No matter how good the model looks, there has to be a point where human can override the model and say that this doesn't make sense. Where does that happen? So that is a very important design decision to make when you are building these AI systems for yourselves. For example, the example that I spoke about earlier, where the older people were being given products that were not meant for them. The whole reason that we found this was because we asked the right question. We asked about these underrepresented group of people, which is the older population, and that's where we realized that it wasn't really working for them. So it's all about that asking questions for that community, that group, and seeing that the model works equally well for them, if not better.
No, thank you, Bhavna. One always says that when you look at systems like these, there are risks, and these systems usually don't fail overnight. Yeah, they drift and they drift and they drift there slowly. Can you share a story or an example? Yeah, real, or it could be perhaps recomposite, where an AI system was passing all of your health checks, so to speak, but quietly drifting into a place that could have damaged trust.
Yeah. So there was this chatbot that was developed by one of the Middle Eastern banks. And this chatbot was meant to provide product information to customers, very straightforward kind of a chatbot where, we had given all the product brochures, the information and everything. And the chatbot was supposed to read from it. The customers would ask questions and the chatbot would give the relevant product information. Straightforward, everything working fine. When you would ask questions, it would give 90% and over accuracy. So all good. But then what we decided to behave like real messy humans. We started asking questions that it wasn't trained for. We started asking questions which were not in the so-called happy path. We brought in emotion, we brought in different languages, we combined product names and started talking about some of my health worries. So we started asking questions like, I suffer from a heart problem, and started emotionally manipulating the AI and started asking questions on that. And the AI then, instead of just telling me about the right insurance that's good for me, started giving me medical advice. It started telling me that for a patient with heart problem, these are the steps that you need to do. And that was, nobody had coded it in. Nobody had asked AI not to do that. And it emerged from the way a model is built and it is generalized. If we had tested only the scripted FAQs, only the happy path or the golden path, like we call it, we would have never seen it. And when it would have gone live, exposed to all the customers, this would have definitely come in, and this would have then created a big social media furor and all that, right? So that's where if you test a system only for its happy path, then it's not governance, it's marketing.
Okay, okay. Um, Again, to try and contextualize this for an IRMAN and for our landscape, for a small NGO or a cooperative or an SME implementing systems like this, what does governance by design actually look like in practice? Yeah, how can they shift governance to the left, build guardrails into design, and build instead of treating it as an after the fact audit? So how do you think we can approach that?
Yeah. Um, so again, when you're building any AI system, it's not just about testing it the right way. It is literally starting from when you were starting to scope the system, to design the system. And that's what governance by design literally means, right? Like from the very first workshop, you need to tell what the system should be doing and should not be doing. Like, for example, it should not be allowed to give medical advice. Your training data, your prompts, your test cases, everything should reflect that boundary. So the deeper issue was the question that we asked. We optimize for, like I said, who's most likely to buy instead of what is the most suitable product that we should be given and as per our conduct policies. So there is another case where there was a sales chatbot that was being built for our, for the sales team, and we asked one of our vendors to do it, and the vendors built this fancy UI, and they delivered it on time, but they didn't design for what we hadn't asked them for, which is trust and aligning the sales chatbot with things like mis-selling policies. We didn't ask them for the proper documentation. They didn't think about scalability and so on. So if these things were not defined upfront, the system is never built for that. So for small NGOs, SMEs, and co-ops, it's very important that they, from the beginning, write down what their non-negotiables are. What does it mean for their customers and their communities even before they start designing the AI system? When you give it to your vendor or your tech design team, these should be a part of your design inputs. You start planning from the beginning, plan your tests, plan for the awkward test cases, things that can make your system go wrong from day one. If you do that, that's where you shift governance left. Don't wait for the system at the point of, okay, now I have to take my system to go live. Now let's start thinking about what are the policies or what are the non-negotiables. Literally start from day one.
Thanks, Bhavna. I see a few questions in the chat that are very relevant. Perhaps what I'll do is I will circle back to some of them and I'll do a quick time checks to get back to them. But making a small shift into the personal side and maybe un-AIable skills, yeah. And I want to bring this a little closer to home, literally. So we have two kids growing up in a world where AI is everywhere, yeah. So my question to you is, how has working so closely with AI systems changed the way that you think about technology at home with our children, with the tools that they use and with what they see online?
Okay. I think working with AI so in such close quarters has made me less afraid, but more deliberate. So less afraid because I see AI every day and I understand AI is not magic. It's at the end of the day pattern matching based on data. And that makes it easier for me to demystify it with our kids. It's more deliberate because I know how easily these systems can do things that can go wrong, how they can embed bias, how they can interact with our kids in a way that can make them think that whatever the system is saying is right. Things like that whole human like nature that it comes with, and how especially our younger child, our younger kid is 10 years old, how she can use it as the authoritative voice to start believing in some of this. And that's where I can step in and tell her what is real, where should they draw boundaries and where they shouldn't. So this is a kind of conversation that I have with my kids about a lot, which is, asking them, why do you think something is showing up for you? It's all about, how the system learns from whatever they are doing and how it throws a smart suggestion to them. And there's a whole system behind it. But they still have the agency to say no to it or walk away from it. And that's the kind of conversation, that I've been having.
Oh, that's great. It makes it live for me as well. So, um, okay. Again, moving on a little bit, and I think again making this topic a little more relevant for the people in the room. What are the un-AIable skills that people in this room, whether you're in NGOs, SMEs, corporates, what are those? What are the skills, un-AIable skills that folks should focus on for the next decade, no matter how good the technology gets?
Yeah. I think the first is this whole skill about contextual judgment, which is, you know, we understand people, power, trade-offs much better than an AI system can. We know that, so an AI system is given a goal, and the system just works towards that goal. It doesn't think about the farmer who is excluded from a scheme or a borrower who's living on the edge. And that's where our context comes in. And that's where we need to ensure that AI does the right thing. So that the context, the real life implications that come, and for us to build that around the AI system is something that we can definitely bring in. Second is this whole systems thinking with conscience, which is understanding how policies, models, and processes work together. You have to understand where to say no, how to design the system the right way. So that whole systems thinking, which again an AI system on its own cannot do. And third is disciplined question and storytelling. For me, and this is what I keep telling our kids as well, storytelling is such a skill of the future. The person who can tell the right story out of what AI gives you and so on can really take the whole room together, right? So you have to understand and ask questions of, show me how an AI system behaves on its worst day and not on its best day, and explain in plain language what this AI system is meant to do and how it is supposed to do. So that's where the right kind of questioning, the right kind of storytelling, and a lot of these the earlier, if during our days there was a lot of emphasis on things like the technical skills of, you need to do engineering and so on. But I think right now it's moving more towards the softer skills, behavioral sciences and so on, and they become much more important. And for example, the people that I work with in my team, I have people from legal background, I have people from psychology background, I have people coming from economics and so on. And these are the people, it's not the technologists, it's people from these diverse backgrounds who are able to ask the right questions and put the right governance around AI systems.
Thanks, Bhavna. Very interesting. Good to have that context. We've been having a fair number of questions coming up in the chat, so maybe let's try and open this up and address some of the questions that we have there. So let me just pick a few what I can see in no specific order. So please forgive me if I've not addressed the first question in the chat, but I see a question from Neil Mani Gupta. Just like we have metrics to measure performance of models, are there metrics or checks that can help track governance standards across models? And is there a way to measure governance risk of models?
So when you say governance standard, I'm guessing you mean you're almost talking about how are you governing these models, right? Which is even your levels of governance that are there, are they at the right level or not? So this is where we look at things like so we have what we call KRIs, which is your key risk indicators and so on, where we sort of look at a high level on overall how is my governance performing. am I, at a enterprise level, if I have 20 or 30 or whatever number of systems, how many of these systems today, um, you know, are showing certain incidents? How are we tracking these incidents? Are these incidents likely to have a major customer impact? How many of them are likely to have a regulatory impact, and so on? So we do have those kind of KRIs, which at an enterprise level help the management to understand how is my governance even working on it? Am I able to capture the defects on time? Am I able to remediate it on time? Am I capturing it post facto, and very much post facto, or am I actually doing it at the time when something happens? So definitely there are metrics that we have designed, and that's what a good sort of a governance dashboard does. It really tracks the effectiveness of your governance.
Got it. No, thanks. That was quite clear. Okay, so maybe a little bit of a segue into the opposite, and I see a question on that theme from Ankush Om. Do you think AI governance is becoming too restrictive? For example, Fable often refuses legitimate biology or medical questions
Mhm.
to the point where it can feel pretty unusable for a medical student. And Opus 5, released yesterday, seems to show similar over refusal. Should we be concerned that these safety measures are starting to limit the actual usefulness of these models?
So that's always a debate that is ongoing on, things like how much is enough. Um, uh, I think uh, you have to look at it both ways, right? While there are some very legitimate reasons for using these models, but on the other side, you could have people who are trying to use it for not the right reasons. So I think it's always very difficult to find that right balance. And you can say that that it should be less guarded, there should be less guardrails, and so on. But then on the other side, we do know of instances where these models have, for example, answered questions that they shouldn't have, and they have led to consequences where people have committed suicide or taken a certain medical advice and taken an action which they shouldn't have. So how do you sort of manage both sides of the story? It's never an easy thing to do. To me, sometimes it's better to be more restrictive and manage that, rather than opening it up more and letting everybody do what they want. And it's just like, if you think about parenting, right? I would rather tell my kids be more careful and not to do something than say go ahead and do, and whenever something happens, I'll look at it later. So it's something similar to that.
I get that. Um, yeah, and I think Javed from PRM here has perhaps raised that point. And he's shared his opinion, and he says that I get a somewhat extreme feeling that given the almost limitless scenarios that are possible due to factors like the probabilistic nature of AI systems and the possible random nature of interactions, it is close to impossible to build foolproof AI systems. How does one know that the guardrails that have been envisaged are sufficient? How does one get an idea of the residual risk? How does one know that testing the AI system is good enough
Mhm.
for production deployment? Great
You
question.
never know. You never know, Javed. That's the reality. I am asked this question every day. Is 90% accuracy good, or is it 95% good? If you're saying it's 95% today and I put it into production, will it always be 95%? We don't know. We just have
Yes.
to, and that's where you need to think about. Um, and that's why you have to think about monitoring these systems becomes really important. A lot of organizations, what they do is they test it in a sandbox environment, in controlled experiments and things like that. The model does great, they put it into production, and they forget about it. That is the biggest mistake that they can do. You need to have very robust observability and monitoring capability. You need to have these systems which continuously keep checking your models. You need to build agents which are trying to break your system, what we call your evaluator or red teaming agents, proactively trying to see where can my system go wrong, so that you can proactively capture that and build in any kind of new guardrails that need to be built in. You need to be as proactive as you can. And the question is not about how robust are my guardrails, because frankly, no matter how robust they are, over a period of time, they will deteriorate. AI is changing constantly. The way people interact is changing constantly. The question is, when an incident happens, how quickly can I detect that incident and how quickly can I respond to it? How quickly can I stop the system from doing any more harm? And that is the real question that we need to ask.
Thanks, Bhavna. Doing a quick time check. We have slightly less than 5 minutes left. So maybe what I will do is I'll take one last question from the chat and then we can move into closing. So I see a familiar name there, Ankur Kumawat. Hi, Ankur. His question, what do you think is the impact of AI on creativity, natural curiosity, and human interaction, particularly in the younger generation who have exposure to such tools from a young age? I think it's a question close to me as well. Ankur, so I will answer it as a parent. I constantly tell my kids that critical thinking is one of the most important skills that they need to read and to maintain, and not to lean on AI all the time. So I try to enforce that at home, but I see that as just as an
Yeah,
example. I have just
yeah.
been corrected that apparently we have 20 minutes left. I assume this was a 45-minute session. My apologies. So we do have
Mhm.
some time. But Bhavna, back to you.
Yeah,
What do you think the impact of AI on creativity, natural curiosity, and human interaction, particularly in the younger generation?
yeah. Um, I will take a slightly different stand on this. Um, when we're talking about the younger generation, we're talking about people who are digitally native. They were literally born, for them, this is the new normal. Jatin, for you and I don't think all are, maybe not for Devaman people who are much younger, but for you and I, we probably came from the time when, as we grew up, AI, whatever tablets were introduced, AI was introduced and all that. So we saw that progress. But for these kids, the world started with AI. They are, the generation that has only known about this. So I think while yes, critical thinking is important, they need to nurture it, and we as parents need to ensure that that happens. But it can manifest in very different ways, not the way we think it is, right? So I think we need to change the way we think about critical thinking or so on, and give them the right kind of platform to do that. I mean, frankly, if I think about that, about, we thinking about human interaction and, getting less and so on, I have been personally amazed by what's happening in India right now. Look at the students. Um, the way, they are taking things in their own hands and all that. They're not sitting behind screens and just sitting in their homes and saying, I don't care. They're out there. They are using technology the right way. So it's just about making sure that you understand the power of this technology, you use it the right way, you ask the right questions, and I think it all starts at home. We need to enable our children to do that.
Great. Thanks, Bhavna. I have a few more questions. I'll get to them. I think very relevant ones. I see one from Nivedita. And I'll come back to that one. But again, pulling us a little back to where we are all from. What advice would you give an IRMA alum who wants to pivot into AI or AI governance from a non-technical role?
Mm. um, I think, like I said earlier, right, AI governance doesn't necessarily need to be a technical role. You need to, in fact, understand AI as a technology just enough so that you can ask the right questions. Like I said, most of the people in my team and the people I work with are from hardcore risk background. They are from legal background. They're from behavioral sciences, psychologists. There's even a historian. So it's all about understanding, like I had said earlier, understanding why are you building the AI system? What is the right intent of this? AI is a technology which helps you do the, answer the right business question, the right kind of decisions that you need to make. In the urban context, whom do I, which part of the community do I help? How do I help with the given scarce resources? AI is just a tool to help you do that. Don't take AI as the answer to everything. It's just a tool. You need to still put on your airman hat about what it means for me to use this tool. And that's what governance is all about.
Thanks. We have a question from Nivedita. I often ask Gen AI tools to critique my thoughts. It is a decent sounding board depending on which tool I'm using. Perhaps using Gen AI doesn't have to be the end of critical thinking unless that's how we wish to go about it. Perhaps a bit of a reflective question, but yeah, any thoughts or comments on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's more like how you would um, sit with a colleague and sort of have a chat and talk about certain issues or test your ideas and so on. And sometimes your colleague might be wrong, sometimes your colleague might be right. So I think take it in the same spirit that sometimes Gen AI is almost like a reflection board for you. Sometimes it can be wrong, and please critique that. Don't take it as the authoritative sort of figure where whatever Gen AI says is something that I need to factor in and change my way of thinking. So take it like you would take any other colleague with a pinch of salt.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, a little bit of a question I would say for leaders, especially in nonprofits or SMEs, and for those leaders juggling impact and survival. How can they introduce AI governance without overwhelming their teams? I think it's a little
Um,
bit about, yeah.
yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
I think, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is about just, using AI the right way. Just ask them to ask three questions, whenever they're using AI. One is, what is this AI system? What decision is this AI system nudging me towards? When the decision is taken, what is the worst harm that the system can do for me? And what is this one simple check that I can put in this system so that the system does not cause that harm? It's simple. It's simple English. It's simple thinking. It's not about thinking about, oh, I need to build these, amazing guardrails about RAG and the context and, things like that. Leave all that aside. Just think about these three simple things. And once we start asking these questions in a conscious manner, all of us, AI stops being a department, like AI governance stops being a department. It almost becomes like a culture. And that's what you want. That's what you want your teams to do. They need to start thinking in that way and not thinking of it like an extra step, a check in the box, or something that a technologist can only do and put things right. That's not what you need to
Okay.
do.
Thanks. Thanks, Bhavna, for that. Yeah, I'm just again just seeing the questions at the time that we have. Again, for the IRMA community, if you had to leave our community, the IRMA community, with one line about their role in the age of AI, what would that be?
Um, I would say that, in this age of AI, AI governance is something that needs people who understand real lives, real institutions, and communities. And that's what the IRMA community brings with us. And we are probably the best place to do that.
Okay, no, cool. And for those folks who don't work in technology at all, people who are doing actual, muddy boots, feet on the street, boots on the ground, people who are running programs, field teams, yeah, small businesses for whom a conversation like this can seem very far removed. Yeah, it really takes me back to my 20 years ago days. Um, what is the one small thing that they can do in the next few weeks or next few days to engage with AI more responsibly?
Yeah. Um, I think what they can, as a person who's out there working, in the fields, interacting with the community and so on, I think what they can do is really start thinking about one is not look at AI with fear. AI is powerful. AI is something that can really change the way, they work and they carry out their whatever jobs are and so on. So try to understand where can AI really help them, make it very real for them. So again, a lot of times, when I talk to a lot of leaders, I sort of say that don't think about AI as AI. Think about think about what are you doing, what is your job, what is your process that you are building, and then think about how can AI help me here. Don't start with AI, start with the real problem, and then retrospectively say, oh, maybe AI can help here, because AI is often not the only answer. Right? AI is not the answer to life, universe, and everything. So start with the question, right question, see if AI can help me. If AI helps me, then ask about, is it helping me the right way? Is it really helping me, as I have a conversation with the community, is it really helping them the right way? Is it helping them achieve what they want to achieve, or is it going to undermine some of my objectives? So I think that's the kind of conversation. First, use AI where it is really helpful to you. Don't just bolt AI just because AI sounds cool, and then just ask if AI is really helping me the right way.
Thanks, Bhavna. Another question from Nivedita. Curious to know why the default mode of Gen AI tools is to be agreeable. I asked ChatGPT why it always tends to agree with me no matter what I said. And to my
Mhm.
surprise, it said that this agreeableness is its default mode. It also advised me to change the settings, so it challenges me more often. So clearly, again, reflective question. There
Mm,
are settings to change that.
yeah.
Maybe you can share share. Do you have any experience in this space, or what are your views on this in your experience?
Yeah. So this is basically, most of these foundational model builders, OpenAI and all that, they build models that tend to be polite and agreeable. You would not want a model that is spewing toxic information and so on. I mean, some of them do if they really push them, but they have some inbuilt guardrails that they build. Things like toxicity, things like they are in their the system prompts or whatever, they have been trained to be polite, trained to be agreeable, and so on. And there's something called a temperature setting and things like that, which you can, modify. And that's where you can change some of these inbuilt by default kind of settings. Um, but yes, those are some of the inbuilt safety guardrails that have been built by these foundation model builders.
Got it. Got it. No, thanks. Thanks for that. I don't have any more questions in the chat, so maybe if I'm allowed to, if I can ask the room, if there are any of the folks here on the call who'd like to voice a question, happy to enable that. Any questions from the room? Okay. Okay. No, if there
I think
are none, then
we had some of the very interesting questions in the chat box
yes, yes, we
itself.
did. We did. Yeah. No,
But
good.
if there is any colleague of yours, sir, you can invite them. We can have time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I see that we've got about 5 minutes. So let me just quickly wind this up and then see if you want to have an open-ended sort of conversation here. But Bhavna, thank you for opening up both the technical and very human side of AI for us, AI and AI governance, and for grounding it in the realities of rural India, non-profits, SMEs, large corporates and all of that. And this is my first session at one of these IRMAN talks. Very, very interesting, great concept. And thank you to everyone for joining, sharing your words, your questions, and bringing the IRMA spirit into this conversation. I hope this, sort of sparks more questions in your organization and also, of course, home to see how we can shape AI with conscience and not just with code. Yeah. So thanks, everyone. We do have a few more minutes. if there's
Yeah.
anyone who would like to say or add anything. Bhavna, if you'd like to say something.
Yeah, no, and I would also really want to thank Devam and the Alumni Association. I think it was really interesting to hear all these questions, and it was really good participation. And very glad to be part of this. And if any one of you have any more questions on AI and if AI is going to go rogue or where are we in the world of AGI? Is AGI here? Because I keep hearing that question all the time. Um, More than happy to chat up.
Yep. And
Yeah.
likewise, I didn't have much to add to this conversation outside of questions that I was asking Bhavna, but if anyone has any questions for me on commodities, I'm happy to answer them, not related to AI. But yeah, again, thanks to the coordinators and for the IRMA Alumni Association for the enabling this conversation. Thank you. Back to you.
Yes, Chetan sir, yes, Bhavna ma'am. Thank you for so seemingly handling this session. I think two important things I'm taking, especially I'm taking, is like you don't have to fear it, and you have to put like what you say in Irma is like put people in the center, and then ask the right question so that no one is ever excluded in our process. In our hindsight,
Yeah.
Jatin sir, you are excellent in bringing the best out of ma'am, and I think it'll really help us out, all the people who see it. I'd also like to thanks all the audiences for asking such insightful questions. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir, for joining, taking out the time. I like to call it a session, call it an end, and for
Yeah.
everyone, this will go on the official YouTube channel, and this will be shared publicly with everyone. With your
Thank you.
permission, I'd like to
Thank
end the
you.
session. If and all, if someone has to ask anything, they can. We still have 3 minutes left. Otherwise, we'll call it a day.
Great. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
Chetan
you.
sir. Okay, okay. Thank
Okay.
you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
folks. Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye.